Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today, and happy summer, almost summer to everyone. We thought it might be a good time of year with the warm weather approaching to do a reboot and a reminder to everyone about all of ATP's capabilities and appetite coverages, what we're looking for, and how we can just simply help you write some more business. I'm joined today, I'm Krista Mays, Director of ATP, and I'm joined today by Joe Devlin, Senior Underwriter, and Jim Kilgallen, the Underwriting Manager for the program. Just a couple of housekeeping things before we jump into the meat of the presentation. The first 10 agents to register will be receiving a $25 Amazon gift card, and Liz Seaman from our marketing department will be reaching out to you either later today or tomorrow to coordinate that, to make sure she has the appropriate email address to send the gift to you. So thank you for registering early. Also, please keep yourself muted during the presentation. We'll do our run through, and we would love to discuss anything you'd like to discuss and answer any questions at the end. You'll be able to unmute yourself, and we'll have plenty of time to walk through any questions that you have at the end. I think we can kind of jump into the agenda and just quickly, as you can see, we'll be going over just a quick NSM overview, a little bit of history about the ATP program, the market outlook of the behavioral health market, and how, the corresponding insurance market pertaining to behavioral health from our perspective. Then we'll take a small break for a summer school pop quiz. And then we'll get into the really important stuff, which Jim and Joe will present, that being the appetite and coverages, and then some of our recent successes. And then kind of wrap it up with why you want to do business with us and some Q&A. So this is just some key statistics of NSM Insurance Group overall, because NSM is just one program within the NSM portfolio. Jeff McKernan, our CEO and founder, started NSM 31 years ago, actually as an independent insurance agent. So all of the programs that NSM, develops, markets, underwrites, and services are really done so and managed from an agent's perspective. And I think that's one of the things that kind of sets us apart in the industry, is that our genesis was really as an independent agency. We currently have 25 programs, both business to business and business to consumer. I'll show you on the next slide what those, some of those key brands are. But we're across the United States and the UK at this point. We have 14 locations, and we've just recently eclipsed 1,000 employees overall. Go to the next slide, Scott. And this is a snapshot of some of our kind of our marquee brands within those 25 programs. We have a lot of industry specializations. We specialize in a number of different verticals. So if you have a particular class of business or vertical that you're looking to place that's outside of ATP, we most likely have something that might be able to help you. But some of our key verticals are workers' comp, habitational, pet insurance, transportation, social services, staffing, sports and wellness. So it's a pretty diverse menu of products. And each program, NSM's model is for each program to have a dedicated specialized underwriting team for each class and each segment that we serve. So on the next slide, you'll see my fantastic team, which includes Jim and Joe, of course. So we work in a team environment. Jim and Joe have two underwriting colleagues, Nancy and Michaela, and we're one-to-one with underwriters and underwriting analysts. So you have, full-time access to each of your underwriters and underwriting analysts at all times. So we'll go into a little bit of history about ATP. We've been the leading insurance program for the behavioral healthcare market for over 16 years now. We do have a specialized focus in addiction treatment. ATP was a first dollar program within NSM. A lot of those market segments and brands that you saw on the previous slide, many of those are acquisitions, where NSM identified a need in the marketplace. There was an existing program or market available, and then we can kind of come in and apply our business development, marketing, technology, underwriting to grow those programs within those individual segments. But ATP is one of those programs that was really grown from scratch, and it was really developed in answer to a market need. The executive director of the National Association of Addiction Treatment Providers at that time, and this is probably back in about 2003, 2002, 2003, approached our CEO, Jeff McKernan, to let him know that his association members had options for their commercial insurance, but there wasn't one particular product that really specialized in their needs. There weren't the appropriate enhancements across all lines. And what he was really looking to do was to develop something for those members, and asked Jeff to help him do that. So it was, a several-year process. We were able to, to build a relationship with the carrier and have, start the program with a lot of great enhancements. We'll go to the next slide. But, we do continue to lead and evolve and enhance our program, over the years. We work with for-profit and not-for-profit entities, both for-profit and not-for-profit. And again, we continue to innovate and evolve and lead and be a leading insurance provider in this space through a number of different things. Disciplined, diligent underwriting is really kind of the basis of what we do, and I think the catalyst for our longevity. And then we combine that with comprehensive products and solutions. Again, we're consistently working with association partners, agency partners to enhance our product and make it better. Service standards, I tell my team consistently, I'll probably get some eye rolls from Joe and Jim, that we really live and die by our service standards. We know that you as agents are our customers. You're the reason why we're here, and we need to make your lives easier. So that's something that we're committed to doing. We also have a focus on claims handling. We do have an in-house claims team. We work with a third-party administrator, which handles all of and manages all of our claims along with our carrier. But we have that extra layer of claims specialists in-house, which you'll find, you'll hear a little bit more about that later on in the presentation. Jim will explain that. And we're also very heavily involved in several industry organizations, such as the National Association of Addiction Treatment Providers, or NATAP, ATOD, which is the American Association for the Treatment of Opioid Dependence, as well as NAR, which is the National Alliance for Recovery Residences. Slide. And this is just a kind of a testimonial from Mark Perino. He's the president of ATOD. We take our relationships very seriously with these association partners. They provide a lot of education for us in terms of what's happening in the marketplace, what their needs are. And then, the flip side is we provide, insurance education and risk management help and solutions to them and their partners. Okay. So in terms of the marketplace and the opportunity, what we're trying to convey to you with these next couple of slides is that it's probably no surprise that the behavioral health and the addiction treatment community in particular is a very vibrant, unfortunately, and growing industry. So there's a lot of opportunity, for growth as an agent who specializes in this segment. Pre-pandemic, the behavioral health market was already set to grow more than 30% over the next 5 to 7 years. You don't have to go very far to hear the statistics and stories about the opioid epidemic, and then by the same token, according to the National Institute for Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism, approximately 14.5 million people over the age of 12 struggle with alcohol use disorder, only 7 of which received treatment in 2019. So, when that data and those statistics catch up to, post-pandemic numbers, so we can see kind of the fallout of the pandemic, we're anticipating that those numbers are going to be that much higher. And associations like NATAP, ATOD are focusing much of their energy and their resources on political action committees to educate and persuade lawmakers to implement greater access to treatment, for those suffering from substance abuse, which just what I'm trying to say is translates into even a greater market need, and we anticipate more growth. One of the good things that came out of COVID for this market is the fact that telehealth services are much more prevalent, more widely available. It was incredibly highly regulated prior to COVID. Those regulations were relaxed somewhat during the pandemic, and most states are continuing to have more relaxed regulation around the availability of those services, and also the level of reimbursement back to providers for those services, which is another key advancement, so that providers are receiving the proper reimbursement for providing those services. So in addition to our association partners, we also call on and stay close to our agency partners who specialize in the behavioral health space. This is Terry Cooper. He's been, in the addiction treatment space and ensuring addiction treatment providers for much longer than we have. And some of his sentiments on this slide from a recent conversation that we had with him, they kind of echo some of the other things that we were saying in the previous slides, like, behavioral health is definitely a growing segment. There's just a huge need. The 10% of the population needs mental health or substance abuse treatment, and only a fraction of those folks actually are getting the treatment at this point. And then also dual diagnosis treatment is on the rise. So at one point in time, you had addiction treatment providers and then mental health providers. Those providers have definitely evolved to understand that those co-occurring disorders go hand in hand, that both need to be treated simultaneously. So we're seeing many more providers provide those dual diagnosis services, and we're also seeing them also implement some primary health and integrated healthcare to kind of treat the whole person. So the segment is definitely growing and evolving, which also in turn, creates more opportunity, for providers to open and for businesses. Then on the flip side, some of his observations as an agent within the insurance market is that he's, over the past several years, he has seen carriers scale back a bit on the class of business in particular, and also tighten up, some of the underwriting in terms of particularly, lack of protection for physicians, a little bit of tightening in the property market as well. So again, we keep in close contact with our agency partners like Terry to kind of keep our finger on the pulse of the market. Okay. So as promised, we'll take a little break and go to summer school, and Scott is going to post a couple of questions, a few questions that pertain to the presentation. So you can go ahead and select the answer that you think is correct. What positive regulatory change has been realized as a result of COVID-19? 1, reduced waiting period for new provider licensure. 2, easily accessible telehealth and higher reimbursement for those providers. 3rd, opioid addiction treatment, unlimited take-home privileges for those folks, or none of the above. So you can go ahead and vote. Great, so most of you did get the correct answer, and that is that it's more easily accessible telehealth and higher reimbursement for those providers. Okay. And the next question, which of the following behavioral health industry associations does ATP support? ATOD, NATAP, NAR, or all of the above? Okay. Yep. Very good. We have a very studious class. All of the above is definitely the correct answer. And the last question, true or false? The ATP program only writes not-for-profit risks. Again, very good. And false is the answer there. We do write for-profit and not-for-profit business within this segment. Okay, great. So as promised, I'll turn you over to Jim Kilgallen so he can tell you about all the really important stuff about our program.
Thank you, Krista, and good afternoon, everybody, and happy summer. Now that we've all aced that final exam and are getting ready to get into the fun, cool things of summer, I wanted to walk us through some of the items specific to the ATP program, starting with our robust appetite, which is kind of summarized here. As Kristen mentioned, we can write both for-profit and not-for-profit providers in our program, and our premium levels range anywhere from $5,000 in total premium to $1 million in total premium and beyond. So we really run the gambit of account sizes within the program on a for-profit and not-for-profit basis. Specific segments that we are targeting within the behavioral health space at this time include addiction treatment facilities. Within that, the subsegments include your residential and inpatient facilities, outpatient programs, which would include your traditional outpatient counseling, some partial hospitalization programs, and then intensive outpatient. And then falling under that segment even further, we have a broad appetite for medication-assisted treatment providers or opioid treatment providers, and more commonly known as methadone clinics. You may see some carriers scaling back within that particular segment right now, but we recognize that it's going to be an even more growing need in our country as the months and years go on. So we're maintaining our robust coverage offerings and appetite for them. Moving on down the line, we also include in that outpatient arena mental health providers in there as well. So it doesn't have to be necessarily addiction or substance abuse focused. Also going into the post-rehab transition, we have the sober living homes or recovery residences included in there. We also have some appetite for faith-based organizations. We write quite a few of them. We can also consider some higher risk programs that are geared to help issues such as eating disorders, and then some outside the box, not your traditional substance abuse or drug alcohol related. We can consider some gambling addictions as well, maybe some tech addictions, which is ever growing in our world today. So that's kind of just the broad high level appetite overview, and we could of course answer any specific questions you may have on that down the line. But going into the coverages that we have, you'll see here they're summarized. We're a full package program. At most, we can have about 3 policies in play on any particular account. That first one being your true package, which would include property, equipment breakdown, general liability, which within our general liability, we provide a sublimit specific to abuse and physical or sexual abuse and molestation, professional liability for the folks that are working and rendering the professional services, and then some, commercial crime, inland marine if they need that, employee benefits liability, all that good stuff. Moving on to the next policy we could potentially have for a client would be a commercial auto. We can write a full commercial auto policy for our treatment provider clients. And last but not least would be our umbrella, which is we have a capacity up to $5 million within the program for that, and it typically goes over all of those underlying liability coverages on the package side and the auto. Some highlights, kind of what makes our program special. We do have some enhanced coverages that fall within each of those segments, and just some brief highlights include on the general liability side, we have blanket additional insured coverage for contracted entities, which I know is really important, especially those for those facilities that do a lot of work for municipalities. Falling under the professional liability, we have a pretty broad coverage for vicarious liability, which would extend to the named insured facility for services rendered by employed and/or contracted professionals. We also offer the option to include primary coverage for those employed and contracted physicians or psychiatrists that may need coverage on the insured's policy if they don't have their own separate in place. On the liability side as well, we can entertain both occurrence and claims made forms on the GL, abuse, and the professional. And kind of just going into more of the items, that these are just additional key coverages that we have within the program. We don't necessarily have the pen for them, but we kind of offer them in an effort to make it a true one-stop shop where we can for you and your insureds. Those items include participant or volunteer accident coverage. That's through Crum and Forrester. We also can facilitate some, if there's a work comp need on a particular risk, with NSM's separate all comp program. And last but not least, we have a cyber liability product, which is through CFC, which is a Lloyd's syndicate. They have a very broad coverage, high limits. We also, within our GL portion of our package policy, can provide a $100,000 sublimit, which is through an endorsement, but understanding a lot of places have a broader exposure in the cyber arena and need that higher limits. We still have CFC as an option for those providers. And then kind of keeping in the theme of the one-stop shop approach and just trying to make everybody's lives easier is in our claim handling, which Krista touched on earlier in the presentation. Just to give you an idea, NSM has a formal claims team, which is led by Dave Gagliardi. He's a former insurance defense counsel and plaintiff's counsel. So he's seen both sides of the arena and knows the tricks that each side tries to pull. Dave and his team, they manage and monitor claims in conjunction with our third-party administrator, Athens, who actually works hand in hand with the carrier on claims. And Athens is facilitating that as well. And Dave's team really, in addition to working with those folks, they work very closely with Joe, Krista, and myself and the rest of our underwriting team as we need them. We organize regular claims reviews with them and the Athens adjusters just to keep us abreast of emerging issues and trends that we can then share with our agent partners. And while we rely heavily on Dave's team in Athens to give us the complete pictures on our claims, our underwriters also have real-time access to the adjuster's claims files. So we can easily pop in and see what's going on with a particular claim if an agent needs information rather quickly. Of course, we're not the experts on that side of things. So if it is something that's a little more nitty gritty, we would of course connect you with Dave's team and then also the Athens adjusters to assist. But for quick information, we're there. And while it would be wonderful if claims don't occur, we recognize that's really the first and foremost reason your clients are purchasing insurance. So we want to try to do our very best to make it as smooth and somewhat enjoyable of a process for them and you. And now I'll pass it on over to Joe, who will kind of go through some of our recent successes that we've had, and just to give you an idea of what all we can do and what all we've seen recently.
Sure. Thanks, Jim. Good afternoon, everybody. Like Jim said, I'm going to go through a couple examples to help illustrate exactly what we've been talking about on this webinar. It's easy for us to sit on this webinar and kind of tell you how great we are and what we can provide, but it's nice to be able to show some real life examples where that comes into play. So our first example here is a for-profit residential treatment center in San Diego. They were with their incumbent carrier for 3 years, loss-free, And in spite of having no losses, no change in exposure, they were sent non-renewal notice for the property and auto simply for being in California, not necessarily even in a brush area or high wildfire risk area. So the agent took the account to market and found that it was nearly impossible to place everything with one carrier. So she started shopping to some excess markets for the property and some monoline auto markets, and was trying to piece it together when she stumbled upon a LinkedIn post talking about our program. And when she went through it, she realized that this might be an opportunity to reach out. This account in particular was a good opportunity to reach out to us and learn more about our program and see if we could help here. And it was a pretty quick conversation to realize that this is something we could do. So we had her put together a submission, send it in, and long story short, we were able to quote and bind all lines of business that they were requesting: the property, auto, umbrella, liability, whatever, everything that they had in place before, we were able to do. And we were even able to put them in touch with our all comp program. So I think they just bound the workers' comp, that came up a little bit later. So we really were a one-stop shop in this case, and the agent was very pleased with us. And we've actually seen 2 more submissions come in from her because she wants to place more business with us. So we can go to the next one. All right, so this example right here, this is probably my favorite example because it really does highlight what makes our product stand out. This account was a for-profit addiction treatment center in multiple states. When it came into us originally, it was just the North Carolina piece of their operation. It came in from an agent that I work with pretty frequently, and he knew our program, and he was upfront with the fact that we had other agents involved and had some competition on it. We were working the submission. My quote came in around $10,000, whereas the competition was in the $7,000 to $8,000 range. But that really didn't discourage the agent working the account, because not only did he know our product, but even more importantly, he knew our competitors' product and was able to poke some holes in their coverage. So on the slide here, there's a couple bullet points where we really stood out. The first one, and it really came down to our professional liability. That's kind of our bread and butter and really where we stand out in the industry. The insured loved the fact that we were able to include primary coverage for their physicians and psychiatrists. After COVID, I mean, everyone's having trouble staffing up, and the healthcare industry is no different. They're probably hit harder than anyone. So it's a nice selling point to them when trying to hire people, that they can cover their insurance costs and they don't have to go looking for their own policies when working for them. But even more importantly than that, Jim touched on it a bit, was our vicarious liability coverage, and the fact that we don't differentiate between contracted and employed physicians in our form. And that was really key to this insured in particular, because part of their growth plans when operating in these multiple states was to hire contracted physicians to act as medical directors in each of these locations. So the fact that they could have peace of mind for themselves as the entity for any claims that might arise out of the acts of their contracted physicians, I mean, that was kind of a no-brainer to pay the extra $1,000 or $1,500, whatever it was, to place coverage with us. And it was really that groundwork we laid up front with our coverages and stuff, instead of trying to sell on price and like nickel and dime the quote. It really did build a lot of trust with this insured. And as you can see on here, their operations are in 7, 8 different states, and they continue to grow. We actually just got a submission in for their Pennsylvania operations that they're going to be opening soon. So this one continues to grow, and they're really connected in the industry too. They've actually referred some other facilities to this agent and told them specifically to solicit quotes from the addiction treatment program. So it's been really good. Go to the next one here. Okay, so this last one, this involves a for-profit outpatient treatment center in Maine. They were abstinence-based program, basically offering low-level counseling services, and they also had 2 sober living homes or recovery residences where clients of the outpatient center could stay while they're going through their treatment. As Krista touched on a bit earlier, the industry is constantly evolving, and this insured in particular was in tune with that, and they saw a really growing need to be able to offer medication-assisted treatment. So they went through all the proper channels, went through the state, got licensing for it, and right when they were ready to start offering the services, they notified their insurance carrier that they were going to begin offering these services, and they were met with a non-renewal notice for change in operations. And the insured did all the right things. They wanted to make sure that they had insurance blessing really before they started offering these services. So they had their agent go out to market and try to place all this coverage, and they had a tough time. They had carriers that were willing to do the outpatient but not the super living, and vice versa. So as this kind of went on, the insured lost confidence in their agent and started marketing agents, and they found someone who worked with us pretty frequently and knew that this would be right in our wheelhouse. So they put together a submission, sent it in, and we were able to quote both the outpatient facility and the sober living homes on one policy. And on top of that, actually, their CEO happened to own the buildings, and unrelated to the operations non-renewal, his personal lines policy was being non-renewed because he was operating a commercial business out of his residences for the sober living home. So we were actually able to quote and bind the lesser's risk policy for him. So in this case, we were able to protect him as CEO of the treatment center, as well as him personally as a landlord. So again, we've said it a few times in this call, but in this case, we were a one-stop shop. So now I'll pass it back over to Krista, who's got more stuff to talk about our program.
So we wanted to make sure our party message was very clear to you. That is that you will matter to us when you write business with us. You definitely matter to us. Again, agents are the reason why we're here. And what we strive to do is to be a consistent, steady market, but not cookie cutter, one that evolves, continues to change and enhance and get better with your needs and with this particular industry's needs. And what we bring to you is obviously our industry expertise, our designated underwriting team, for your agency, commitment to our service standards, phone calls, emails, quotes, availability to answer questions, and help you serve your clients. Risk management and loss control is not something that we touched on very specifically, but it's something that we definitely have to offer through our carrier, Allied World. They have several platforms, hundreds of risk management videos and training tools, and we're continuously working with them to enhance those offerings that are very industry specific to our clients. And then as well as our in-house claims team, we take claims again very seriously. It kind of goes back to our founder Jeff McKernan being an insurance agent when he founded NSM. He knows how important it is to have the claims process go smoothly. So, all of these things wrapped up, it's really to make your lives easier and give you a product that you can really stand behind. So I think we have some time, plenty of time to open the floor to questions. You can feel free to unmute yourself and just jump in if you have a question. Liz, I think you said that we had some questions come in through the chat box as well.
Yes, we do. We have 4 questions from the chat, so I can get us started with these.
Okay.
So the first one is regarding treatment facilities. Will coverage also include activity trips a facility may take their patients on, like camping, rafting, or biking?
Yeah, those exposures are things that are not specifically excluded from our liability policies. Those are all exposures that are they're underwritten to. This is somebody that obviously, insures probably some adventure therapy organizations and things like that, which again are not ineligible for us. We would just underwrite around them to make sure the appropriate, policies and procedures and risk management processes are in place.
Awesome. Second question. This is a lengthy one, so buckle in. For facilities that are going to be a new licensee and their license has not yet come in, and they have already leased a residential property and they need premises liability in the meantime, does the program provide just the premises liability in the meantime? And for facilities that are going to be a new licensee and their license has not come in, oh wait, is this the same? I think that's just repeating the same question over.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something that we would definitely need to talk offline specifics, with the agent, and our emails and phone numbers are going to be flashed on the screen at the very end. We'll give people time to take note of that or take a photo or whatever they need to contact us. But we're happy to talk about that offline. It's not an easy answer. The operation is not yet licensed and fully operating as a provider. We would just need to kind of talk through the specifics on that.
Great. A couple more that have come in too. So next question is, do you need a PNC license to market your products?
Yes, yeah, you would need to be a licensed property and casualty agent to represent one of the insureds.
Great. Next question. Which is the underlying carrier for professional liability in California?
So Allied World Insurance Company is our exclusive carrier for all of our package lines and auto and umbrella.
Got it. And then the final questions are just about the same. What is the turnaround time for submissions? And another agent asked, how fast is the turnaround time for a quote? I have a renewal on 6/8. Can you get a quote without appointment and then appoint if binding?
Yes, we can quote prior to an appointment and get the appointment all set up. We try to make that process also incredibly easy. So if agents are on the call that are not appointed with NSM or with ATP, which is one and the same, we make that process pretty seamless and painless as well. So we can definitely accept a submission and take a look at that. The turnaround time just honestly depends on the completeness of the submission and the straightforwardness of a fit for the program. But I'll throw Jim and Joe right under the bus. They'd be happy to take a look at that for you if you can get it into us. and we'll absolutely do our best to get it turned around.
I believe those are all the questions that came in from the chat function. So I think if anyone else wants to chime in and unmute themselves, we could take any other questions that way.
Right. Okay, all right, good. So again, here's all of our contact info. Feel free to reach out to any one of us. Whoever looks the friendliest is just fine. We can all help you equally. And we really appreciate taking some time out today. Thank you for listening in. And again, happy summer. Thank you.